Now, Matt, I have a question here. Um, when I was teaching high school, St. Mary's High School in Calgary, I discovered at St. Mary's, which was a football school, I met Father Whalehan, and he was referred to in your book a number of times. And the number of Bacillian priests that um, were coaching sports and also teaching subjects in high school really had an impact on the school system. I don't believe there's as many now, but I do know back then my high school was one block from the Bacillian residence on the Elbow River, literally in downtown Calgary. And in your book, I believe the team spent times there having discussions, and you managed to research that side of it. I wonder if you could elaborate on the Bacillians and their ability to teach, coach, and in some way preach.
Yeah, certainly, Wally. It's at the time, like when Father Bauer became a Bacillian priest in the 1950s, there were about 500 active Bacillians. Today, there's 50. So you can see just the impact they can have, and it's just a lot smaller now. And a lot of those 50 are getting quite old. But what the tradition was, it was throughout North America. And their concern was, and this stretches back, they started sports, organizing it through the schools in around 1905, early on, and they win an early, they win some senior national championships early on, and they become the sports team, and there's a buzz around them. So from that, it really sends ripples throughout their different schools in Houston and Rochester and then out to Calgary and beyond. And so then they have this idea of having schools, but then they're doing sports. And so there's this concern for the whole student. So even in the 1930s, they're having a debate, are athletics good for kids? Is this beneficial? And so those discussions went on, and in particular about hockey at St. Mike's, because at that time, St. Mike's, the majors, their top team was a junior A team, and this is before major junior. So this is, the top junior A team won the Memorial Cup. And then they start to wonder, is this so much an emphasis on winning, on playing games? Is this detrimental to young people in their education? This is being asked in the 30s, but then it gets picked up in the 1950s as the demands increase. And of course, this is post-World War II. There's concerns about the Cold War, and are we falling behind the Soviets? And so the educational standards are rising. And then the OHA, or that league with Junior A, they're playing more and more games. So by the time when Terry's playing, he played for the last majors team in 1961. They played almost 100 games in one season, if you count preseason and playoffs. And the Bacillians' fathers were saying, can education and hockey fit together? And at the time, it seemed silly. Today, now we have sports academies, and there's a lot more better integration, especially in Canada, with major junior hockey. But then there was a real split, and so the Bacillians ultimately, they have this concern about the education of the whole person. And so in some ways, it's not just a Catholic concern, of course. This is other people working in hockey had this concern. So when Father Bauer gets speaking about this in the 60s, and he starts a national team, a place where guys could go play international hockey, play in the Olympics, and they could get an education, a university education at the same time, they were pushing the envelope. They were challenging the how the game was run and how it was structured, saying we need to make a stream for education. And a lot of people supported this, whether it be reporters, politicians. A lot of people got on board with what Father Bauer was doing.
Terry, I wonder if you could check your speaker and see if it's on. Okay, I may be making a phone call to you and get your speakerphone on while we talk here, but I'd like to just bring in Tom right now. In terms of having heard all this, Tom, uh, you are the one that I think that went into coaching and got involved at the highest level of our sport. And I've always sensed with you the sense of ethical coaching and the purpose of the game. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about that and the direction of the game relative to the way Father Bauer saw the sport to be and how I know you wished it would be.
I'm happy to do that, Wally. Yeah, I think for all of us, we love playing the game and certainly created an affinity for it there and a real love and passion for hockey and our teammates and our coaches. I can tell you to this day, Red Daniels, Bob Askew, Stan Wales, Don Anderson, and Don Neal. Gainers, Knights of Pythias, ACT, the Bombers, and Walkley's Meat Market. Green and white, red and white, light blue, black and white, orange, and navy blue. My coaches, my teams, and the colors of my jerseys, I remember them all. And I remember my coaches because they volunteered their time to make sure that the arena was a destination. So keep that in mind as I hearken back to the minor hockey banquet and Father Bauer and hearing his message and recognizing how important that was, and as much as we're young and teenagers and make some silly decisions from time to time, I came to realize that the coach was an absolute pivotal person in my life along with my parents. And I thought to myself, and that's why I wrote it down on my notes, that, people say to me, Tom, how did you get to the National Hockey League? And I say, I got to the National Hockey League because of an experience I had when I was 12 years old, of a desire to coach Canada and the Olympic Games. And that's all I wanted to do. That was my number one objective in life, was to make sure that 22 Canadians somehow performed at the level of greatness at the Olympic Games, hopefully winning a gold medal. Whatever happens, happens. Did that, and it's amazing how life sort of unfolds. But the bottom line for me was just the level of integrity that Father Bauer demonstrated, and I became more accustomed to, and had conversations with people like Terry, and a company of others, Roger Bourbonnais, and a bunch of people that had played for him, and I just saw something that struck me where it mattered most, and that was in my heart. And and you've got to be careful because your heart and your head can kind of conflict with each other, and one can trick the other. And I never ever got that sense, as a coach. And I did understand though that the coaching is like playing Scrabble. Without the coach, it's like playing with no vowels. So you've got this group of people, and you have an opportunity to galvanize this group to do something special. And in order to do that, you had to have a relationship with every single player. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to treat every player the same, but you have to have the requisite in empathy, understanding, care, and love for your players. And it doesn't matter who they are, and how that becomes very much a part of your fabric. And I really believe that if you came to the rink with that in mind, and then winning would take care of itself. And there are wins and losses, and that got me jobs along the way after the Olympic Games, and it cost me jobs, quite honestly, because it's what did you do for me yesterday sort of thing. But I really and truly believe that ethical coaching has become somewhat secondary. Winning is the guilty stepsister, if you will, and I really don't think that that's how we should be looking at guiding young people. And again, and Matt, you've been so eloquent in your description of Father Bob